When the Crash Insane Trilogy was announced back in 2016, it was one of the hypest moments for the platformer genre in the last few years. Plenty of people who have been wanting to get into the series finally had a modern and accessible version to them, and old fans got to relive their childhood in the glorious new graphics with the classic feel of the original games. And now, 2 years later, another age-old icon joins the party, Spyro the Dragon and the Spyro Reignited Trilogy. Prior to the Crash Trilogy's announcement, the outlook on Spyro was pretty low, mainly because he was reduced to nothing but uses for Skylanders, and at some point even that ran out. But since the Crash Trilogy, people have been anticipating a Spyro Trilogy to happen, and honestly, I thought the soonest we'd see this announced was in 2019, but we have been blessed with the game releasing just before that. And today, we'll be looking at the first game in the trilogy, Spyro the Dragon. Now, I don't have too much of a connection with the Spyro series, as I've only played a small part of the beginning of Spyro 1 and nothing past that. This means that this game will be reviewed by someone that doesn't have experience with the series and won't be looking at this game through a veil of nostalgia. I'll still make some comparisons to the original game given that this is a remaster and all, but here on out is a brand new experience for me. But without further delays, I'll be seeing if Spyro the Dragon has any value to it now as it did for many people back in 1999. Some dragons were talking crap about this guy named Nasty Nork. He found out because it was broadcasted on TV for some reason, and he gets angry. Honestly, I would too. He then crystallizes every dragon in the world aside from Spyro. For some reason. Why didn't he zap Spyro? If he had an issue with all dragons, which he clearly does since he zaps 80 of them, why didn't he zap Spyro? Anyways, from then on, Spyro has to make his way around the 6 worlds so that he can rescue the dragons and defeat Nasty Nork. It's a pretty simple story which follows more of a importance in the journey rather than the destination kind of tone. In fact, the game itself does a subtle way of saying this.
What about Nasty Nork? I'm going after him.
Find dragons first. That's all I can tell you.
Regardless, it works pretty well for a game like this, with it being a huge collectathon and saving the dragons is the main priority. The story never really goes any further than just beating Nasty Nork though. This game looks beautiful when it comes to the upgrade. Now, yes, the graphical difference is obvious given the fact that 3 generations of consoles have gone by since the original game, but there are other things that make the upgrade stand out. The areas look like there are so much more to them while staying true to their original designs. It feels as if they truly expanded on their original ideas. The dragons all have unique personalities as well as detailed clothing and objects that make said personalities stand out among each other, and not a single one of them looks the same. This is a greatly appreciated change considering they all look the same in the original version. In that version, the dragons looked more like recolors at best. You also have the option of listening to the remastered soundtrack or the original versions of the song. This is something that is always appreciated in a remaster. Plus, some people prefer the original versions of some songs over the remastered ones, but overall, the remastered soundtrack is amazing. By the way, no offense to the original voice actor of Spyro, and I would try to say the name, but the last name is kinda difficult and I don't want to butcher it, but I highly prefer this voice actor over the original. The original sounds too nerdy to me, which isn't how Spyro acts. I wonder who the new voice actor is. Ah, that makes sense. He's done Spyro work before, and is also a very famous voice actor. Well, I understand why I prefer him now. Spyro goes through multiple hub worlds and levels, freeing dragons from their crystal cages. Freeing a dragon will create a checkpoint and autosave spot hybrid that works by simply going near it, so you'll never have to worry about trying to save. Some dragons, once being freed, will also give you tips about your moves and abilities as well as how to defeat enemies around you, but since I'm doing a review, I'm basically doing their job for them. The areas are filled with big gaps, so you'll have to glide around to reach a lot of things in the game. You also have a dash which can be used to take down enemies. Some areas of the game will have a slope with arrows along it so that you can perform a super dash when you dash on them. Doing this can give you access to areas that can't be gotten to otherwise. You can also attack enemies by shooting a spray of fire at them and burning them alive. Yeah, Spyro isn't exactly the most peaceful game in the world. Certain enemies are immune to certain attacks, like metal armored enemies can't take fire damage, so keep that in mind whenever you see a new enemy and figure out what to do. To avoid enemy attacks, you can dodge to the side, then counterattack. Defeating the small creatures give you a butterfly which give you health, or I guess sparks, which then applies to you. Okay, hold on a second, why is this game so dark? killing these poor innocent creatures to then get a butterfly from their stomachs, for some reason, to keep you alive. It's the circle of life, I guess. Spyro's health, or I guess Sparks' health, gives a slight boost to your reach for gems. He also can be used for finding the closest treasure in an area, so it's very beneficial to have him alive. You're able to gain lives by breaking the dragon chest with the thing living inside it, or by collecting enough silver orbs, which you get from enemies you've already defeated. All levels and hubs have gems that you can collect. Some of them are hidden within different types of chests, so you'll have to perform different actions. Some metal chests even have locks that require a key to open. If you spot one, remember the locked box location and keep an eye out for a key somewhere in the area you're in so you can return to the chest later. Other metal chests are more enforced but don't have locks. Instead, you'll have to find some other way to break it. In some levels there are eggs that are being held by speedy blue thieves. You'll have to chase after them and hit them once you're close to take the egg back. Every hub has one flight level where you have to fly around and complete objectives before you run out of time and without landing in any water. Completing an objective gives you a certain amount of gems depending on the one you complete. There's also a boss in each area. If you want, you don't have to fight them all. All of the areas have a certain amount of gems, dragons, and or eggs in them that you can check in the guidebook of the pause menu. You can also go straight over to these levels from this menu once you have gone through them for the first time. While going throughout your adventure, you might encounter some skill points. These require certain actions to be done in some levels of the game. Doing enough of these will grant you parts of an art gallery. Some of the spots are actually really tricky to find, so if you have an issue navigating, there's a map that you can make viewable in the pause menu. In order to move to new hub worlds, you'll need to first meet the requirements of the balloonist, which can be either collecting gems or saving a certain amount of dragons. Afterwards, you can go back to the area as many times as you like to retrieve any collectibles you missed out on. This game overall feels very nice. The controls are simple and responsive. It feels different from other platformers but also doesn't force itself to be different from other games, leading to a whole bunch of issues. It's unique and works well for the kind of game that Spyro is going for. The music and graphical upgrades are phenomenal while still feeling like it's staying true to the original game. It also caters to both the hardcore fans as well as the new players with the options of the original or reignited versions of the music and a map that you can choose to have on screen if you so feel like it. And this is a dream for collectionists. There's a ton of stuff to get in this massive collectathon with the gems, the skill points, the flight levels, and there's still more that you can get. Throughout it all, you'll be doing different stuff to keep it from being boring. You're also able to get everything on a first try, so if you're good enough and know what you're doing, you won't have to come back to it later. Plus, if you need to find gems, you almost always have sparks to point you in the right direction. The only things that would consistently give some trouble are the flight challenges, since there are gems you can only get when you complete all 4 objectives before time runs out. These are bar none the hardest parts of the game for me, as they require a good amount of precision and recognition of patterns. In fact, I only got one of the all-in-one challenges during my playthrough. However, they always give that one more try feeling where you know that you can beat the levels, and you are able to. It just takes some time and dedication. The amount of levels are not actually marked in the guidebook. Considering that new players won't know how many levels are in a hub world, it can be a little bit concerning trying to 100% this game, as it is possible to miss out on entire levels. I didn't even notice that I missed one of the bosses until I looked it up.
Actually it's 120%, you twit.
I am aware, it's just that I couldn't fit this any other way in my script. Don't you mock me. Load screens can be a little long even on the PS4 Pro, which is what I'm playing the game on, but you are able to do stuff in-game and it counts up the gems you collected during it, so it's not completely boring. Plus you can do something outside of the game, like write part of a video game review script in the meantime. The trophies for this game are kinda strange. Most of them aren't even based on the skill points of the game. They're based on things you'll more than likely run into on complete accident. It's whatever though. It's not like you actually have to get the trophies to get through the game, so if you don't care for them, that's perfectly fine. Now, this is probably just a me thing, but I do wish there was more development of the overall lore of characters in the world itself. I know that the story is simple, but the best we really get for the world is a name that's pretty self-explanatory, and for some of the dragons, their clothing describes them more than anything else. A lot of them just give a simple thanks and leave. I am grateful that they do at least say thank you. However, if you are one of those people that don't care for a super intensive story or lore, that is perfectly fine. Honestly, the story is good for what the game is trying to do. Again, this is probably just a me thing. I do like games with a pretty nice focus on story like Kingdom Hearts and God of War after all. By the way, it's weird for me to try and explain both sides of my argument while hopefully not sounding insane. I really wished I played the original game so that I would have been more hyped for this remaster. The original game stands very well amongst other platformers, and the developers of the remaster, Activision and Toys for Bob, did a fantastic job with this game. This remaster is friendly to newcomers and is a huge respectful throwback to veterans of the game. I had a blast playing through it all, and I'm very excited to go through the rest of the trilogy. Don't know when I'd make videos for those though, unless you guys want those, but I don't really have any idea. And to tell the truth, I had to try really hard to find some bad remarks I had about this game because it's just that good. When I was first writing the script, I almost thought about not even including a bad segment in this video. I highly recommend getting this game, and if you're interested, you can get it right now on PS4 or Xbox One for $40. And keep in mind, it also does come with Spyro 2 and Spyro 3, which someday I'll probably cover. But regardless, thank you creators of the original Spyro the Dragon and the Reignited Trilogy for making such a great game. What's going on, my fellow residents? It's me, TheFrozenCavern, and thank you for watching today's video. This is actually my first review doing a relatively recent game that has actually come out instead of a really old game. So hopefully I've met to the same satisfaction as I've done with those other videos, which I've actually done really well. So if you're coming here for Spyro, make sure to check those out. You might be interested in those too. But one thing that I do want to make note of, man, oh man, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Again, it's still going to be happening, but it's just going to take some time, so please be patient. I still have not explained the reason why it's going to take longer than some of the other games that I've done, but some games will take a little bit longer, and it's not just because of the length of some of the games. There is a different reason for that as well. And make sure you guys go into the description because that's where all of my social media is. On my Twitter, I end up making posts for this series, and that usually pertains to the older games. If I want to do a newer game, I'll usually just do it as soon as possible, like I did with this video. And also, I feel like for remasters, putting recycled garbage from your childhood actually is really clever, and I did that completely unintentionally. But regardless, if you enjoyed, don't forget to like and subscribe, as well as share with your friends for more. And if you are coming here for Spyro, again, make sure you check out my other review videos. I promise to not disappoint you. But until next video, take care.
I want you for a